I am here with
Michael.
Michael what?
Michael Truong.
So your last name is Vietnamese. So tell us a little bit more about your background.
Do you want to ask him to turn the music on?
I tried.
Okay, try it. Okay. My background. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Canada. Actually, from Regina, Saskatchewan. Most people don't know, but it's like a little prairie town, farming town. I came here about 6 years ago.
I'm like, bro, I'm Canadian.
Right.
I'm British Columbia, and I'm like city boy. So I already think people who live in Alberta are a little cray cray in
Oh,
terms of
really?
like dealing with
Alberta's
coldness.
like the big city for us.
I'm like, okay, it's next to Manitoba, the right of Saskatchewan. I still remember my little geography. Okay, right. So you're next to Ontario.
Yeah, it's the one that looks like a Lego block. It's just like completely
How was life there from 0 to 30s?
0 to 30s. Okay.
Just
Let me
start with
think.
childhood. Start with childhood.
Yeah, childhood it was different. Like I was usually the only Asian kid in school, in my class. Maybe there'd be one other person. So I think when growing up and the teenage years is what is kind of challenging. Is
Did you
then
get
you get
bullied
into yeah,
being Asian? Yeah.
for sure. Even as an adult, um, there was like kind of bullying or discrimination and stuff like that, and it's more shocking as an adult. As a teenager, I mean, you hear from your older siblings or friends that's it happens stuff like that. But
So, how old are you? Tell the audience.
yeah, I'm 35.
So you're 90.
No,
No, 80, 89.
Yeah, yeah,
89. So then this is like pre-internet. So you grew up during like the teenage years of like there wasn't things of like
yeah.
Asians on the
Internet was just
media.
coming out. Yeah,
Yeah. So then like I grew up like a little bit around that, and it's like we would get like bullied, but Vancouver pretty heavily dense in terms of Asian
yeah.
population.
Mhm.
So I could only imagine in terms of like
No,
being
it's like
outed and like being like bullied,
yeah,
because
it's
I
very white.
worked around like Canadians, like, and how were you singled out? Like, do you remember any instances of growing up where like, wow,
Uh the one that stands out the most is when actually as an adult, I was working a job in private equity, and I was wearing like business clothes, walking to get coffee, and came across someone, and they just I didn't know them. They just blatantly said like, "Go back to China."
wait, does that work?
No, this is outside.
Okay,
So I work my office is in downtown,
okay,
and
city center.
usually it's like there's I don't know, it's not like the nicest. Also downtown Regina, so yeah, came across someone that did not know, and they just made a comment like that, and obviously I was shocked, upset. We exchanged some words, and that was the most shocking. Parents are Chinese, but they're born in Saigon.
D5.
No, district. My dad is District 1, and then my mom is District 4.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think as you get older, you realize that you stand out more, and you realize, oh, I don't look like the rest of the kids, and you notice that more and more as you grow up. You will hear stories from your friends about their parents and families and like holidays and stuff like that, and it would be a bit different than what you would experience at home. And also with my parents, they're kind of strict in a way that I would never have friends over, and also part of it would kind of be slightly embarrassed to have friends over as well, just because of
Differences.
differences, how my parents are, and it's funny. Once I come to Vietnam, I realize, oh, it's maybe part of the culture,
Yeah.
how they speak, and the tone, and the volume, and the
So it sounded
that
like
stuff.
growing up, were you almost embarrassed or ashamed
For
of,
sure.
of
Yeah,
being
yeah.
Asian?
Yeah, because being Asian, especially when I was growing up, it wasn't it there was didn't seem like a positive thing, just because people pointed out and make it a negative thing, and also perhaps it's part of my personality too is just overthinking, and maybe that's part of the reason too is like you kind of get in your own feels, and you create an issue that maybe is not there. For example, like maybe your parents are cooking something that is different than a white family, and maybe the smell is a bit different, like obviously fish sauce and all that stuff. And part of that is, oh, if my friends come over, are they gonna bully me over it or make fun of me over it? So I think a lot of that is probably in your own head.
Was there a time during your adolescence where you tried to be more white, like more Western?
Be more white.
Yeah.
Growing up with a lot of white people around, I think you naturally try to fit in. I don't know if I was mentally thinking, oh, I want to be more white, but I just want to kind of fit in more. And part of that is like, okay, playing sports or maybe listening to country music or all that stuff, or
Oh yeah.
going to country festivals, and I do like country music. Um, but yeah, I think it's just a kid trying to fit in. I don't know if it's necessarily about the race part.
So was there a point where like you're like not wanting your friends to like smell the mom or like probably like shoes off the house or type like that? But
Mm.
was there a time where you kind of like embraced that? Like when did you start like being like, okay, friends over, this is just the culture, or did
Mhm.
it take until coming here?
Actually, I think yeah, when I had some friends over, maybe like I was a teenager for a birthday, and then my mom would make obviously Vietnamese food, and some of my friends would have never tried that kind of food, and they really enjoyed it and like expressed that positive things. So I was like, oh, cool. That's nice to hear. It's like then all the things that I was thinking about before was just in my own head. Yeah, I think moments like that kind of make me feel a bit better about standing out a bit.
So then you're technically Chinese, but it sounds like from what you're telling me, it's much more Vietnamese based.
sure.
So did you? Was there any confusion of like, am I Chinese? Am I Vietnamese? Oh, I'm a Chinese, but my family's kind of Vietnamese culture based. Like, how is that? Because your parents speak to you in Vietnamese,
Vietnamese, yeah.
not Chinese.
They speak to each other in Chinese when they don't
That's
want us to hear.
code switch. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
usually the other way. Because I don't know about you, but in Vancouver, I've met a lot of people like Chinese ethnically, but
Right.
born in Vietnam. But they speak their kids in Cantonese,
Wow.
and they speak to each other in Vietnamese. So
Oh,
you're the
shit.
opposite.
I wish, man. I wish I learned Chinese. But no, it was the opposite. Yeah, I spoke to my parents in like mix of Vietnamese and English, probably similar to you, and then Chinese they would save for fighting between them two.
Where'd you go to university? What you study?
So I went to University of Regina, right in the hometown. I studied marketing and finance, and yeah, in university I started to kind of branch out, and I'm naturally more introverted, especially as a child, and during university I became more and more social. I think my friend introduced me to some like business societies and clubs, and started to like branch out more and kind of find myself more.
Were there more Asians in the university, or
For sure, but most of them were in like ESL programs, so
Gotcha.
there were exchange students learning in the business school. Probably
Pie chart? We're looking at how much percentage?
fuck.
You can swear to tell you.
Yeah,
10%, 20%.
less than 10% for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's Regina, right? It's you would get some international students, but not that many.
So going there, you finished your degree, and then you jumped into the workforce. Like, what did you
Yeah.
do?
So initially, I went into advertising. So I worked for the largest advertising firm in Saskatchewan, and then after that, I wanted kind of a different experience. So then I worked for a finance company in private equity. So I did business development there. So I worked there for a few years, and then after vacationing with my parents in Vietnam, I decided that I want to experience at least a year in Vietnam, because after that
It always
experience,
starts with a year.
yeah. I think it's like the a good buffer, right? It's hey, if I don't like it, go back. You have to at least give it a year and see how it is.
So then you're working in advertising. Like, you just want to quit? Like, what? You're like, I'm just gonna go to Vietnam for a year.
No, at the time I was working in private equity. It was tough to quit because it was a very safe and comfortable job.
Were you making enough to like have like your own place? Everything?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Everything was set, yeah.
Everything was good. Um, a couple of things I think happened in life that made me want to move. Had like a big breakup with long term girlfriend, and yeah, like I said, after traveling to Vietnam with my dad, I was like, oh shit, it's like so modern here, and the energy is.
What year was
up.
it?
It was 2017, I believe. Yeah, and it's funny, like when you go with your parents to Vietnam, they show you like maybe D5, and we'll go visit family and stuff like that. We never really go to D1 and explore. And I was at the time my late 20s, so I was using Tinder and matched up with some people, and then they showed me around, and they showed me District 1 and showed me some cool restaurants, bars, and I was like, oh, this place is pretty dope. Like not at all what I expected. Completely different from what the experience was with just my parents. Try living here. It's so different from obviously Regina. Let's try living here for a year.
So you just quit.
No, actually, what I did was I asked my boss if I can do 1 year remote because my work can be done online. So they agreed, and I moved here for a year. And during that year, I said I'm actually going to stay. So you might want to look for someone
Did
else.
your boss kind of saw that coming?
Or well, how I explained it, he understood. Like I said that I'm getting married. I found someone that getting married. So I mean, once he hears that, I think he realizes, yeah, I'm gonna be around here for a while. Yeah.
So then, how were you able to quit your job and live here? Like, what was that transition?
So during that year, I found another job in Vietnam, pretty much the same role in business development for one of the larger asset management firms. And yeah, so there's a chunk of time where I was doing both, working at remotely for the Canadian company and also for the Vietnamese company. So super busy, but yeah, it was good. And then kind of slowly transitioned out from the Canadian company.
Your parents, I would assume, are the older generation older, or did they have you a lot younger?
Older.
Okay, so then how was their reaction? You're like, I'm gonna go to Vietnam, and I'm living there more than just the vacation.
Yeah, my dad was down. My dad
Really?
loves Vietnam. He spends like 6 months here, 6 months in Canada, and he's always saying like, "Oh, Vietnam is great, blah blah blah. Food is great." Like, just like promoting it a lot to me. She's more hesitant. Initially, I don't think she was too happy about it because I mean, I have a stable job and house and all that stuff already in Canada. So she wasn't too happy. But then after a while, after visiting me and seeing I'm doing okay here, then she was okay.
But was there any sense of like hesitancy for your move? Like, oh, my parents are not gonna approve this, or did you have that like, I don't care, I'm gonna do what I want to do?
No, I don't really care. My parents, although I think are kind of traditional, but they're growing up in Canada. They're more chill than what now I see is very traditional in Vietnam. So I'll listen to their opinion, but in the end, I'll do what I want. Yeah.
And would you equate that to being Canadian and growing up in like a Western kind of environment? Did that influence you, or where did you get that mindset? Like, I don't care, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
A mix. I think part of that is growing up in Canada, being more liberal, and part of that is I'm 10 years younger than my siblings, 10 and 9 years younger. So
You're the baby.
yeah, I'm the youngest. So a lot of the time, I felt like everyone's busy with their own lives. My parents have their thing. My siblings have their thing. So not to say like I was forgotten or something like that, but I felt more comfortable to kind of do whatever I want.
Were you babied by your siblings in terms of like
For sure.
having like taken care of?
100%, yeah. My sister was kind of like my emotional and mental parent, right? Because like growing up Asian in Canada or States, usually parents just focus on, okay, food, shelter, all that stuff. So my sister really kind of helped me with emotional and mental development. And then my brother was kind of the cool older brother, took me to go work out and took me to get my first tattoo and all that stuff. So yeah, luckily I had that kind of support as well.
Tinder dating, you
Right.
found someone. How was life in Vietnam? Like, how was that transition?
Yeah, so initially it was really good because you're in a new city and Vietnam is obviously very fun and exciting. Yeah, and I met someone while I was here, and then 3 months later got married, and yeah, we stayed together for 2 years, and then we realized we kind of rushed into it, and even though not very compatible, I don't really regret the whole experience. I think it kind of matured me quite a bit.
Then what was your next transition to that? Okay, that's year 1 and 2. Marriage didn't work out. How'd you get to year 3, 4, 5? Like, what was next for you? Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, so it's been interesting. So my coworker at the time knew the producer of like a very popular dating show, Người là
Nala.
Nala. So he talked to me and he said like, "Oh, you fit the profile of someone that would be on the show." At the time, I was single and I mean, yeah, tall. That's pretty much all the requirements: single and tall. And so I met with the producers and they said, "Yeah, do you want to film? We'll film it next week." I was like, "Oh, okay, let's do it." I'd watched the show before, so I kind of knew what it was all about. So I joined the show, and then afterwards, I had no plan of like jumping into showbiz or entertainment. I just thought it'd be a fun experience. Someone coming from Regina, Saskatchewan, and being more shy, introverted, and it was a really fun experience. And after that, I got a lot of people following me and opportunities, and some designers, fashion designers, asked me to do fashion shows and photo shoots. So that kind of ramped up, and I decided to take a pause on working in finance and to go all in. And I went on all in, and then unfortunately COVID hit. So then obviously there's less jobs for that. So then I jumped into tech. So I worked for an international gaming company for a few years, and then didn't really enjoy that. So then decided to kind of try again in entertainment. Yeah.
So it almost sounded like it was like unplanned, and it was because you met your friend that kind of like changed your whole trajectory.
Yeah, 100%. I was for me, since being in Vietnam, I just kind of decided, okay, any opportunity that comes up that could be interesting and a learning experience, let's try it out. So
During COVID, like, what did you want to do? Like, you were locked down, your show, working a job. What was your mindset?
during COVID,
Yeah.
I mean, before I found a job in the gaming company, I was kind of panicking a bit because I was at home not doing anything. No shows were happening, like fashion shows or photo shoot bookings. So it was like pretty kind of stressful time. Luckily, I was working in fashion. I met ex girlfriend, and she helped me through that a lot.
A lot of networking.
Yeah, not only in fashion, but also because I was like feeling so down. Luckily, obviously, there was someone there to kind of help, kind of mentally through all that stuff. Because I think if you're at if you're by yourself and you naturally overthink, just you think the worst, right? So yeah, eventually I landed a job at the gaming company, and then felt better, had a stable income, and then worked there for 2 years.
So then you just told me off camera, like, you just quit 2 months ago. So what was that like decision making process? Like, what made you like, I'm gonna try this showbiz thing again? I'm not happy with what I'm doing.
Kind of all things lined up. My work contract was done. I was there for 2 years. My contract was 2 years. At the same time, I was invited to join a reality show. It's the producers from Singles Inferno came to Vietnam to do the same with Vietnamese and Korean cast. So they asked me to join. So that kind of happened, and also I was feeling like my first attempt in showbiz kind of got cut short because of COVID. So I felt like, okay, let's go all in again and see how what could happen.
When
So
when did y'all film that?
we filmed it a few months ago, end of April. Yeah.
And then I'm sure you had to like sign NDAs, and now you're pushing out all the media and publicity for it. Are you doing the marketing, or it's like it's kind of doing it for itself for you?
Well, they have a PR team to do the marketing for the show, but obviously each of the participants, the cast, do their own marketing as well. Yeah.
So how was being on a Vietnamese esque Singles Inferno
It was probably
compared to like, because y'all were Nyla is completely different, right? This is like a reality TV show. So how was that overall experience? Like, how many days was it? How was the experience?
we filmed for 15 days, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, but also one of the most challenging. It's like emotionally, mentally, physically draining. We would film from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. and it's exhausting, man. Like you don't think dating is exhausting, but when there's cameras on you and you know that okay, people are gonna watch this, you have to kind of present yourself in a certain way. And I mean, usually if I talk to someone or go on a date, sometimes I'll swear, but then you're like, oh, okay, you can't say this, you gotta avoid this. And then sometimes you'll be on 2 or 3 dates a day, plus maybe a physical challenge that day. So by the end of the day, you're like, oh my god, you get little sleep and you're kind of stressed. But at the same time, some of the experiences you get to have are once in a lifetime. Like I know one of the dates we went on was on a yacht during sunset in Phuoc. The sun was like red. The sky was like purple, blue. I oh honestly, okay. After filming the show, I was on a very high because the experience and it was a lot very stimulating. After that subsided a bit, I was kind of getting more used to the routine of work, and it's very different from going from like 9 to 5 office to setting your own schedule and creating content and being your own pretty much boss. Initially, I was kind of down a bit just because I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Right?
Was it after the show?
Right after the show, I felt good, and then slowly kind of came down a bit to reality. But now I'm kind of getting used to the routine more, and kind of guess trusting the process and going the flow more. So I feel better now. So it was like high, then a bit down, and then now it's like stabling off.
So 6 years here, how have you grown as a person in terms of like, let's say if you didn't go to Vietnam, let's say you just stayed your life in Saskatchewan, like what was the biggest growth for you? Like how have you grown as a person?
I think I noticed the biggest difference when I go back to Canada and I visit my friends. And I realized all of my friends are doing the same thing. They go to work, they come home, they have a family, they have a house, mortgage, all that stuff, and it's very safe, right? Um, and I realized I made the right decision in coming to Vietnam, even though my life has not been stable. It's been an adventure, and I think I was meant to have this adventure. How have I changed? I think going through a lot of volatility, a lot of lows, makes you learn a lot and it makes you more mature. Just going through different experiences. If your life is too safe or always just on a positive note, you don't learn from that, right? You learn the most from when you're faced with challenges or you're in the gutter. So I think I'm more calm now. I'm more, hopefully, more mature. And then, yeah, I think as you get older, you realize you care less about what people think, which is ironic because we work in content creation and we kind of care what people think, right? But in your circle and people who have direct influence, you care about what they think, but the rest you don't really, you're not bothered as much.
So as we wrap up this interview, what's one tip for someone who wants to come to Vietnam? You've been here 6. Do you have any pointers? I usually start with 3. If you have one, that'll be great. They have no idea about Vietnam. Maybe they've spent some life in Manitoba, Calgary, Medicine Hat. Like, what would you want to give them if they were to like make the move?
If they have moved here or they're gonna think about it.
Like they're thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just do what I did or many people do, just try it out for a year. Um, Especially if you're in like 20, 30 age, you haven't settled roots in wherever you're from. You have no family ties and all that stuff. Just take the risk because you're not going to get the opportunity again when you get older. You might be physically not capable, or else you might have a family and it might be more challenging. So the best time is now, and the longer you wait, the more you'll hesitate probably.
Cheers, buddy.